Hey people, Nemesis Tech back with another video. While many are interested in building a new PC system, and for that I recommend my previous video on parts lists, with the PC market finally starting to wake up thanks to Ryzen, it may still not be all too clear if one should invest in a motherboard or just buy the cheapest board available and support it. That's normally where the B series boards had recommendations left, right and center, and it made sense to, because the feature set was always comparable to the higher end X series with a multi-GPU in form of SLI and Crossfire support, basically that for years now. Still, the X series had its perks, mostly more I/O from the chipset, particularly the extra 5 gigabit lanes of USB 3.2 Gen 1 ports, and some extra PCIe lanes for the most part. As Ryzen came around in 2017, it shared the AM4 socket with the APU series of AMD's Bristol Ridge architecture. Ryzen had much hype, but not so much adoption, because people still had a bad taste from previous AMD CPUs plainly being hot, running garbage. The motherboards from that era are still around, with the chipset number 300. That's where the distinction was made. A300 extremely budget, non-overclockable, entry-level, B for the mainstream crowd, and X for enthusiasts. While A320 is still around, it's basically that. It has support for Zen 2 or Ryzen 3000 CPUs, not across the board but manufacturer dependent. The upcoming Zen 3 CPUs are not supported. I would disregard anyone from buying a A300 board. B350 and X370 have been replaced by the 400 series and will likely be only found in the used market. It shares its trait with the A300 series as for support of CPUs. I would suggest to stay clear of these for most people wanting future support, but it's a great option if you are building a used system with say Zen or Zen Plus CPUs. These boards give you comparable I/O to the 400 series and have enough power to run up to 8 cores, with some exceptions even capable of more. And that brings us to the two currently sold generations. We have B450 and 550, as well as X470 and 570. Let's break my recommendation for the former down, shall we? So we still retain our traits of X having overall more I/O to its B counterpart and the dead SLI support. And then we have generational difference, 400 versus 500. The 500 series brings the all-new PCIe Gen 4, praised left and right as a standout feature to Intel and its own 400 series. It allows you to connect a GPU per Gen 4 link, and in most cases the better option, a Gen 4 NVMe SSD. You know, those super fast ones that double speeds from Gen 3 to 4? They don't benefit your gaming experience in the slightest as of now, as games can't even give you tangible differences from SATA to Gen 3 NVMe, where the theoretical speedup would be 8x. But I get it, gaming is not the only thing PCs are doing. Video editing and numbers crunching want their share of fast storage as well. To that I would say fair point, but not enough to sway my opinion. To explain that, NVMe SSDs have a small controller of their own, and while Gen 3 has been around for a long time, controller chips were optimized not just for raw big data speeds, also called sequential speed. After those were maximized, the development got focused on random speeds, something far more benefiting than sequential speed. Random access speed are the biggest benefit from the old spinning disk drives to solid state, as Windows background tasks are fed from random access, as well as when you copy not that one hour long 4K video you shot on your phone, but the 4000 family photos, cute pet shots and selfies. Sure, Gen 4 will sooner than later catch up and even surpass random access of bleeding edge Gen 3 NVMe drives, but it's not today when you are asked to pay for it. And as for graphics cards, well, it still looks grim for PCIe Gen 4, as tested by Tech Power up in September of 2018 when the RTX 2080 Ti and its smaller siblings launched. Yes, the fastest GPU for nearly 2 years, the 2080 Ti that costs a whopping 1,200 euros or dollars, has been tested to only saturate slightly over half of the Gen 3 bandwidth. So to benefit you in this department, GPUs will have to double up on their performance to benefit from Gen 4, though learning from history that is impossible. Predicted gains from this generation GPUs to the next hover around 40%. I would love to know if you agree or disagree, so leave a comment. What I'm getting at is that the B550 and X570 standout feature is something that the average consumer will not need for the better part of 2 years, and if you indeed have that one workload that could use some Gen 4 love, 100% you already know it. As for everyone else, don't pay now for big 2x numbers in marketing you will realistically never see, at least with this motherboard you want to buy now. Next point would be support for next gen Zen. The Zen 3 launch is so close I can nearly smell it. AMD has officially confirmed that Ryzen 4000 desktop is coming out this year, and with big drama from the community, they also officially confirmed that B450 and X470 are going to be supported alongside their 500 series successors. But there is one huge advantage to be had with the older boards. While the 400 series chipset supports, let's call them legacy Ryzen CPUs, so Zen and Zen Plus, the 500 series will not be retrofitted with this compatibility. What that means is, if for some reason your bleeding edge Ryzen, be that the Ryzen 3000 now or 4000 later, shows need of troubleshooting, you have the possibility to put in any Ryzen CPU, a record-breaking 4 CPU generations from the 1000 to 4000, be that from your friends, your grandparents or your collection. Just stick it into the system and troubleshoot, something clearly absent from the 500 series chipset. The last nail in the coffin should be this: RAM. DDR4 has been around for a long time, 2014 to be more precise. Yes, a whopping 6 years since launch. To keep it short, DDR5 is to be expected sometime next year, with official specs publicized and most likely the first data centers running pilot programs already. Well, guess what? B550 and X570 don't have it, making this series a stopgap solution, especially in light of the performance potential left on the table. Ryzen is highly dependent on RAM speeds. Now to throw in some potential use case for the beforehand mentioned PCIe Gen 4. While I want to point out the shortcomings of the 500 series chipsets, I do not want to outright neglect potential. There is but one potential saving grace, and it's highly speculative. There are rumors floating around that the next-gen GPUs will increase ties with PCIe and NVMe SSDs, more than just in the traditional sense using the PCIe port as interface between the rest of the system and itself, obviously. The rumors point to a similar behavior being adopted like in the PS5, where the NVMe SSD and the GPU don't just interface, but have a direct link. In case this pans out, the NVMe SSD could utilize the fastest part of it, the cache, as extension for the GPU's memory. But I don't see even that as being enough to saturate the Gen 3 X16 port, as a similar system is in place where the GPU uses memory from your RAM to essentially do this already. Take this info with a grain of salt, because it is as of now just rumor. To conclude, if you are in need of an AMD motherboard now, don't show weakness to marketing of the 500 series. Get yourself a well-established 400 series board, be it B450 or X470. Take a look in your market and see what's on offer, the features you want and what falls into your budget. For example, The MSI X470 Gaming Pro Carbon I have here could overclock a 12-core 3900X or XT while keeping the VRM, the power delivery of the CPU, within decent temperatures. And even the big daddy of consumer CPUs, the 16-core 32-thread 3950X with minor airflow, basically an adjacent fan next to the VRM. I will link a Reddit thread in the description. It helps you find what motherboard is needed for overclocking, because 90% can run stock 3900Xs and smaller just fine. And to stick to reality for a moment, outside of highly enthusiastic cases and workplaces with demand for high-power workstations, there is not much place for a 16-core 750 euros CPU right now. The average consumer will, if at all, want to get their hands on the CPU when it's phased out and highly reduced in price, or on the used market even later down the line. At the end of the day, I get it. It will not be forever the 400 series is produced and sold, but save the money while you can for, in most cases, a useless 500 series motherboard feature set and invest it in more storage, faster RAM, the next tier graphics card, or higher core count CPU. You know, the parts that actually matter. With that said, leave a like and subscribe. Bye bye.